3, 2, 1, 0.
It is 7 o'clock. It is Monday, which means it's time for Monday Night Nerd. Welcome, one and all, to the show that is technically a verb now. Thank you to Mr. JS from the Geeks & Co. podcast. His internet went out last week, and he said that his internet did a Mike Myers, which I so appreciate that I've now become a verb. Welcome to Monday Night Nerd. If you're new here, my name's Myers Corp Cosplay. I am a nerd, a cosplayer, a Comic-Con volunteer, and a whole lot more in the Southern Ontario area. And this is my show. We talk about all different things: wrestling, cosplay, podcast, movies, video games, and a whole lot more. Tonight, we are talking about arcade cabinets. I am a kid of the 90s, and that is what we're talking about tonight. I spent a lot of hours in the arcades back when I was a kid, and we're going to talk about what my favorite arcade cabinets are back in the day and what I think I would love to put in my basement today if I had billions and billions of dollars. Marcy, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you spending some of your Monday with me. It has been a very, very busy week here. If you weren't around last week, you don't know that my wife, my amazing, beautiful, loving wife, who is our sponsor of the podcast, she has not been here this week. She has been on vacation. I should be with her, enjoying Mexico with her. However, unfortunately, I have many cons to do this year, so I was not able to get that much time off of work, so I chose to go to conventions and spend my weekends with you guys than heading down to Mexico. And may I say, I am jealous of her right now because she is having an absolute great time. Until tomorrow when I pick her up, which I'm very happy to have her back in the home. I love my wife. I really did miss her. I hate being in the house by myself, and it's nothing about, anxiety or anything. I like having that extra heartbeat in the house. I have my animals, which I love, but I just need that extra bit. I need that human, my wife here, so super excited to get her back into the house tomorrow. But tonight we're talking about arcade cabinets, and first we're going to start with a little bit of news, folks. I am not a TV person. I've not seen many TV shows that everyone loves. I have not seen Breaking Bad. I have not seen Game of Thrones. I have not seen, what else? Pretty much every TV show that doesn't start out with the Marvel logo, and a few DC ones. I have not seen them. However, there is a show on Amazon Prime in their third season called Reacher, starring Alan Ritchson, and I am a big fan of that show. I was told when that first season came out that I was going to like this show. I had not seen the movies. I'd known Alan I'd seen little bits of him in Smallville, and he was Raph on he was the in-costume person for Raph in the Michael Bay TMNT movies. I was always a big fan of his, and I have to say, he has become my new crush. If you know me, I have a big piece of my heart is held by Jason Statham. I've loved that man for many, many years. I've always said he is on my list, but Alan is giving him a run for his money. Reacher is such a good show. He is so good in it, and we have now started season 3. We have started season 3 with the first 3 episodes being released on the 20th, and I have to say this is one of the few things that I think has gotten better every season. I think number 2 was better than number 1, but I have to admit, if it didn't have the main villain, Robert Patrick, in it, it probably wouldn't be as good. The story was good, but the acting of Robert Patrick made it even better. This season is so good. The main villain as of right now is played by Anthony Michael Hall, who you may know. And Reacher is, I don't want to spoil too much because, again, he's only been out for a couple days, but he is in a predicament now that I am super excited to see where it's going to go. It has taken a few turns already in the first 3 episodes that I was not expecting, but I'm super happy of what has gone on. So, the first 3 episodes, I will say you should go watch them. They're about 40 minutes each, but man, if you're a fan of action and you're a fan of witty comebacks like Reacher has, you will love it. I think it's been a great show, and I'm excited to watch the next few episodes. We're going to jump into one more review and then a couple other news items. Folks, I'm a movie fan. As I said, I'm not a TV guy. I don't watch much TV, but I love my movies. However, there are several movies from back in the day that I have not seen. And point being, last week we talked about a little movie that you might know called Gremlins. I never saw Gremlins until 2 weeks ago. And that was something that I'm trying to do a little more of. The new movies are good, but older movies, I feel like I've missed on a bunch of them. And I'm wanting to go back and watch them. And one of the movies that I have not seen before, which I'd seen a whole bunch of clips. Yes, Rob, WTF. Yes, I had not seen Gremlins. I literally held Gizmo at a con and as I said during the show, I had seen all the clips. There wasn't a ton of the movie that I hadn't already seen. So I just wanted to be like, yeah, I've seen the whole thing. The same goes for the movie that I watched yesterday evening. I love, as most people do, Quentin Tarantino. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is one of my favorite movies. I think Brad Pitt is incredible in it. There is another Brad Pitt Quentin Tarantino movie that, again, I've seen so many clips of, but I've never seen the whole movie, and I finally watched it, and that is Inglorious Bastards. I've never seen it, and I finally watched it last night, and I have to say, it is a great movie. It is a great movie, and Rob agrees 100%. It was so good. There are not many villains that I get invested in and are like, I can't wait for this person to die. And you know what? Christoph Waltz was one of those now. I was blown away by his performance. And the fact that, screw it, I can spoil it because it's been out forever and only people like myself who've not seen it, he doesn't die in the end, which makes it, what happens to him, though, makes it so much better. So Quentin Tarantino, again, blows it out of the water. It is a great, great action movie. It's a slow burn at times, like most of Quentin's movies, but that's fine. If you know it's a Quentin movie, you know that there's going to be slow burn moments. There aren't many that I haven't seen of his. As I said, I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Reservoir Dogs is a great movie. Pulp Fiction, obviously. I think Jackie Brown is on my list. I need to watch Jackie Brown for sure. The new ones, I'm not a giant fan. I gotta watch Django as well. But yeah, I was very impressed with Inglorious Bastards, and it kind of makes me upset that what's his name? What the heck's his name? Who kills Hitler in the end? Who directed Thanksgiving and Borderlands? He was at Niagara Falls Comic-Con, or not Niagara Falls Comic-Con. He was at Frightmare in the Falls, and I would love to have walked up to him if I knew that he was the one that did it and been like, thank you for killing Hitler. I greatly appreciate that. But yeah, it was really good. I was really happy with it. I'll probably watch Jackie Brown and stuff in the next month or two because yeah, I want to run through all the Quentin movies because I'm realizing he doesn't really have a lot of bad ones. So yeah, if you have not seen it in the past, 20 years, watch Inglorious Bastards. It's a good movie. One more review, then we got a little bit of a teaser that I'm super excited about. Resident Evil 4, we need to talk about it quickly because, as I mentioned in my preview review after the first couple hours, I was a fan of it, but I was not a big fan of it. For those who know, I am a big Resident Evil 2 fan. I have Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation. I have Resident Evil 2 on N64. I have the original box that it came in. I have the strategy guide. I've played the game 50 times. I love Resident Evil 2. I love the remake. I just played Resident Evil 3 for the first time. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was very much like Resident Evil 2, shorter, but still fun. Resident Evil 4 I've not played until now because my wife got it for me for Christmas. I was okay with it at the beginning, but from what everyone said, you were going to like it further on. I have to say everyone was right. I really liked Resident Evil 4. The problems that I'd heard about side characters or characters that follow you along, like Ashley, were not as bad as people say, and I don't know if that's been changed with the remake or if that's the way it's always been, but I really liked Resident Evil 4. I thought it was a lot of fun. I actually am really excited to go back and run through it again on the New Game Plus mode, because I know there's some stuff that I totally missed, and I want to go back and see if that helps me in any way. I did play it unassisted, for anyone who knows. That is easy mode. I don't care about the struggle. I know people love playing on professional and hardcore and, one-hit kills and all that stuff. I'm sorry. No, that's not my gaming style. I just want to enjoy it. So, yeah, I really enjoyed Resident Evil 4. I thought it was very much a B movie, which is what I heard. And it was good. I have no problem with it. It is probably now my third favorite. Resident Evil 2 is still my favorite. Village is probably number 2. This is probably number 3. 7 is probably number 4. And then 3 is probably the next. I still have to play through the original remake, which I've had on my PS4 and 5 for years, and I just never touch it. And then, yeah, I think they're doing Code Veronica next. They're remaking it, and I'm super excited to play that as well. When it comes to Resident Evil, I'm just saying, I am a big fan of Leon at Resident Evil 2. There may be a cosplay coming by the end of the year. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah. Definitely check out Resident Evil 4 if you haven't. You probably have. Again, something I'm late to the game on, but I enjoyed it. Last but not least, I gotta grab a prop. There was an announcement at on IGN yesterday about a new game coming out, which I have to say my jaw dropped when I saw this announcement. There is a TV show back in the day, an anime TV show called Samurai Pizza Cats, which if you've never heard of it, that's perfectly fine. I loved it. It is a goofy show that was just a cool concept of 3 cats who are ninjas, and they deliver pizza and they fight a turtle. It's a dumb concept. I get it. It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's one of those ones that's like, it works. It just works. And this was a show that I watched a ton as a kid, but they never really did anything with it. They had toys, but nothing big. They are now making a side-scroller game for the series, and it looks almost identical to the animation. And to prove how big of a fan I am, when I went to Anime North for the first time, this was the first book I picked up, was the Samurai Pizza Cats fan book, where they go through all of the episodes of the series, the art style for all of the characters, and if there was a way that I could make a cosplay of these, I would. However, anatomy-wise, I don't really look like that, especially height-wise. But yeah, I am a big fan of this show, and I am super excited to see what this game is going to look like. It is going to be a lot of fun when it comes out. Lark Bark, I'm so glad you can join us. Pretty Nerdy Crystal says, I love the show so much. Yeah, it is a classic to me. I'm so happy that they're finally doing something with it when it comes to video games, because it's something that I thought would work very well in the 90s, but I just don't think it had the popularity. But that nostalgia bug kicks in for everybody. Folks, that is it for the news right about the 15-minute mark. If you're still here, I would greatly appreciate it if you could hit that like, subscribe, share, all those buttons down below here on YouTube. One thing I did mention on the pre-show, if you're someone who tunes in regularly for the pre-show on Instagram, next week, I'm probably not going to do an Instagram. I'm probably going to go on TikTok Live. And the reason being is that when it comes to the algorithm and the way that Instagram works, when you start a TikTok or an Instagram Live, it sends out a notification to all your followers. However, after that, nothing else. Nobody gets any notifications or anything. It doesn't bring people to your stream. If I go on TikTok, I will get all of you guys because I'll mention it on Instagram, but I'll also get a bunch of new people checking out the live stream because it will send people to the TikTok Live. So next week, I'll put it in a story so you guys know. Next week, I will do the pre-show on TikTok where we're going to talk about cosplay and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm probably going to have a lot more to show because we got a Gambit coat ready. We got a portal gun started over there. We got a whole bunch of other stuff being built. We got a new sewing machine over there. We got a lot of we got a lot of content coming out this week, and I want to talk about it during the live. Crystal, I never get a notice. Exactly, and that's part of the problem, is that it's supposed to send out a message to everybody saying, hey, Mike's live, you should go watch him. And I've read from other people that they don't get it as well. So I'm going to do a TikTok live, and I will just post a story saying, hey, you guys should hop over there. Here's the link. Go watch on TikTok. And I know some of you don't have TikTok. I apologize. That's where we're going to do it. All right. Now, sponsor, my amazing, loving, incredible wife who is spending her last evening in Mexico on vacation. I know she's having a blast there. I get to pick her up tomorrow, and we're going to have the house back to normal. The house has been great while she's been gone, but I do miss her. I love my wife, and it'll be nice to have her back in the house. I know the animals miss her as much as I do, so it is good. It's going to be good to have her back. But as always, she is the sponsor. I would not be able to do this without her. You guys know that. She will always be the sponsor, even if someone starts giving me cash, and I appreciate that. Hun, I love you. You will always be my sponsor. One last thing, guys, if you don't know, Toronto Comic Con is coming up. This Cajun guy will be making his debut that weekend on the Sunday, and the weekend after, the last weekend of March, we will have Toronto Game Expo where I will be a guest. Freakish Workshop will be a guest. Saphira Cosplay and many others, including the Geeks & Co. folks who will be hosting the con. It will be an amazing event. You should go check it out. Toronto Game Con on Instagram. Get your tickets because we're going to have a blast. And especially Freakish Workshop and I will be doing a panel, my first panel. We're going to be talking about EVA foam. And if you want to start doing that, you can do our panel and we'll show you what you need to know and what you don't need to know. So, Toronto Game Con, Toronto Comic Con, big month coming up when it comes to cosplay. Shall we get into the main event? Let's talk about arcade cabinets because I'm a 90s kid. I grew up in the 90s. I spent a ton of time in the arcades because, well, that's what kids did in the 90s. We went to the mall and we spent time in the arcades. And I have to say, the arcades hold a special place in my heart, as I think many kids of my generation. It was times where you made friends. It was time where you got to do things and experience moments around a bunch of people that you all sort of had the same interests. I can totally remember going into an arcade and seeing kids be put up on a pedestal because they knew how to do a fatality in Mortal Kombat. I knew people who knew how to throw the foot soldiers into the camera on TMNT, Turtles in Time. It was a great place, and it's a special place for me because that is one of the few things that me and my dad really bonded over. My dad and I, I love my dad a lot. I love him. He's my dad. But we've had some friction when it comes to our relationship, and it happens. Father and sons do that. But that is one of the few things that I love, that he would take me to movies, and we would go to the arcade. There was an arcade just down the road from us at the Center Mall, and we would get some pizza at the pizza place next door, and then we'd go over and spend some time in the arcade. And I remember bonding over video games, and him playing the games that he loved, I'm playing games I love. We played some games together, which we'll talk more about once we get into the list. But it's definitely a place that holds a special place in my heart, and I feel like I would be a very different person if we didn't have those moments and spending that time in the arcades. So that's my background of arcades and why I have this love for it. Let's talk about the list. Now, we're going to break this up into two parts. I could do a top 20 from 20 to 1 in one episode, but that would take a very long time, and I don't want to take up too much of your night. So we're going to do the first half tonight. We're going to do 20 to 11, and then next week we're going to come back and do the top 10. Again, I tried to break this down to 10, but there are too many that mean a lot to me and are great games, and I want to spotlight all of them. So we're doing 2 episodes. Now, I broke this list into a couple different... I broke it up in ways that are important to me. These are listed when it comes to not only the game itself, but the cabinet. And the reason for that is when you were a kid, you knew certain games were good. You knew Mortal Kombat was good. You knew Street Fighter was good. You knew House of the Dead was good and all that. But there were games that when you walked by the cabinet artwork grabbed you and went, ooh, what's that? That looks like it's a fun game. And that sucked you into the game. So this list is not just gameplay. It would be a completely different list. It would be a completely different layout and order if we were just doing gameplay. This has to do with both gameplay and artwork. We are not going to mention any of the one-up creations that have come out of the past decade. We're not talking about homebrews or anything like that. This is strictly 90s video games. Also, no pinball. Pinball is a completely different area. We will probably do a pinball list at some point. That would take up half the list. That's not fair. This list is also mid-90s to 2000s. I was born in 88, started going to arcades probably around 93, 94. Do not expect Donkey Kong and Pac-Man to be on here. That wasn't my generation. They are great games. They have their own spot. They are top tier games, but they're not games that I played. So don't sit here and be like, Donkey Kong should be number 1. It is a great game. It's just not my generation. So let's get that out of the way first. So let's kick things off with number 20. Now, this is a game that some games are very standard. There's games that are Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, what else? Actually, let me break that down. You've got your fighting games. You've got your sports games. You've got your shooting games. You've got your puzzle games. You got your racing games, stuff like that. This is one that nothing is like this game. Lucky and Wild. Now, if you're going, what the heck is Lucky and Wild? Lucky and Wild is a 2-player driving game where one person drives and shoots and the other one shoots. Or one person drives and the other person can shoot both guns. This is a crazy game. I don't know any other game that was built this way that had this type of gameplay. And it was such a fun game. It is a very Capcom Namco game. Very cartoony. You're 2 cops. You're driving down the road and someone starts shooting at you and you just start driving along and you are just holding that trigger down and putting your pedal to the metal and you are just shooting everything that moves. It is such a fun game. This is one of the few games that I don't think it gets the love it deserves. There are ones higher on this list that you're going to look and go, well, duh, that was going to be on the list. This one, most people don't know about it, and they should, because it is so fun. This is a game that you are looking through the windshield of your car, and above is the rear view mirror digitally on the screen. And every time you get shot or you hit something, the characters' heads are in the rearview mirror and they react, which as a kid was something you didn't see in other driving games. And this is something we're going to talk a lot about later. There are games on this list that I love, but are cheap as hell. There are games on this list that I'm like, why did you make 10 levels of this game when most players won't get through 2 without throwing away $10 in quarters, because it's so cheap when it comes to playing the game. This game, not that cheap. Really fun to play, easy to get through 2 to 3 levels in 1 quarter. There is a very awkward part of this game, and it's very similar to a game that's higher on the list. Every time you beat a mission, they sort of count your score, but while they're counting your score, your visual is you in the garage, and there's digital girls in tank tops, and you're covered in kisses, and there's a little bit of cleavage. It is the most awkward experience in an arcade, sitting next to your dad and being of the age of knowing what that is, and you're both like, we're not talking about this, Dad. But it's, like I said, it's a super fun game. I really wish this got more love because, yeah, it was such a fun game, and I don't know many people who know about it, and I feel like that's a shame. It's really a shame because it's such a good game. So that's number 20. We're starting things off with an innovative game that you can't find anywhere else that I know of. We're now going to move up to a classic. And when I say classic, this is the one that I think everyone knows. Lethal Enforcers. Lethal Enforcers at number 19. This is what I think the stereotypical, when people think of basic, non-themed shooting game, that's the one. There are imitators. There are many imitators I've seen out there, but this is the one that I think everyone thinks of. Why is this one on 19? Well, again, it is an original. It is the one that I think of the most. This cabinet is a very fun-looking cabinet. I love this artwork down here because this is a real-life photo of a female and male cop, and a lot of the artwork you saw in the arcades back then were either very digital, but it was either very digital or it was very real. So you had your cabinets that had the real people on it, like a Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat, but then you had a lot of like just digital artwork like Marvel and TMNT and stuff like that. This was one that looked the most real. Like, this looks like it was a real photo shoot with a real cop, with a real cop car. Like, it looked like that's a real thing. So that really got my mind of going like, ooh, that looks different than any other arcade. As I said, there are so many different versions of this cabinet, and I don't know if they made different ones or if that old ones broke and they just started sort of Frankensteining them with other cabinets, because I've seen flat screen TVs up here. These ones are more of the deep angled ones, like the old school cabinets. The guns, I've seen 4 to 5 different guns. I've seen these ones that are revolvers. I've seen the regular 8mm looking colored ones. I've seen 8mm black. I've seen the revolvers in black. Like, again, I don't know if this just got played so much that people were just throwing in parts to make them work, or if they actually made that many different cabinets. This is such a fun game. It's one of the first times I remember seeing actual actors in a game. They were not, fast moving. This was the early 90s. But it was a really fun game to see real actors in it that weren't, Mortal Kombat that was more digitized. And it was, again, not a super hard game. It was not one of the games that, again, we're going to talk about in a little bit, that was super cheap when it came to beating the crap out of you as a player. It was easier. It was fun. The music, I remember in the background and hearing the screams and stuff when you shoot the bad guys is the best word I can come up with. It was a great game, and I think this one is one that a lot of people think of when they think of, and like Lark Bark says, this arcade takes me back, definitely. It's something that a lot of people remember from their childhood. So we've got Lucky and Wild, which is a shooting game. We've got Lethal Enforcers as a shooting game. I'm telling you right now, we're not doing just shooting games, so don't worry, folks. We're going to talk about a classic that everyone loves and is probably wondering why it's so far down on this list. Street Fighter 2. Now, again, a classic, an absolute classic in the arcades. There are many different versions, but Street Fighter 2 was the main one. Why is this so far down? Well, I am not a giant Street Fighter fan. It is one of the games that it didn't hit me like I think it should have, because mostly I am a giant fan of another fighting series, which we'll talk about later, obviously. If you know me, you knew that was going to be pretty high on the list. But I do have to give this one its credit. This is one that, again, when you think of an arcade, this cabinet, this game is probably one of the key ones that pops up. This, not exact photo, but a buddy of mine had this cabinet in his apartment when I was really good friends with him and I was living in the same building, and it was fun. It was fun playing this game. It's, again, I don't want to negate the classicness of this game, the love that this game deserves. I'm just not a giant Street Fighter fan, even though I have a Street Fighter cosplay. I understand its legacy, and I keep repeating myself, but I feel like it's a great version of Street Fighter. It's probably the most well-known, but I'm not a giant Street Fighter fan. I like the other fighting games more, and one of those that I love even more is, hang on, Justin Smith, I remember Street Fighter 2 cabinet at Roller Gardens. Oh, thank you for the flashback. Roller Gardens, as a kid, used to be broken and the characters would change into other characters mid-fight. Really? Wow, that would have been fun. That's a glitch that I would have loved to see. Man, Roller Gardens. Oh, thank you for that. There is a roller rink, I think in Mississauga, that a few of us have been kind of saying we should go. That is something. I can't roller skate to save my life. I can't ice skate to save my life. I will rollerblade all the time in the summer, though. So I would love to get out. To a roller rink and go nuts again. It's been a minute since I thought about that. Agreed, Crystal. That is a flashback that I needed. Thank you very much for that. So, Street Fighter 2, it's a classic, but it's just not my favorite. But one that I did love, and I am an underrated fan of this series. Killer frickin' Instinct, folks. Like, look at this. Look at this cabinet. Orchid on the side looking amazing, and an incredible fighting game. This is a game that I'm so glad. I am so glad when Xbox said they're going to give away their games to PlayStation fans, and we are going to be getting Halo. We're going to be getting Gears of War. We're going to be getting others. And I was like, just say Killer Instinct. Just say Killer Instinct. And they said, and Killer Instinct is coming. I was so happy. I love the Killer Instinct series. It is one that I think deserves a lot more love than it got. It is one of probably 7-8 fighting games that were all out at the same time, so it's kind of hard to not. And of course, you got the two main ones being Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat taking a lot of the spotlight. But this is one that the cabinet stands out with the incredible artwork, but also the song. Like, walking through an arcade and hearing that dun 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 dun, dun that riff is just makes your heart pump, and it just makes you go like, okay, something's happening in that machine. I need to go listen to that. And I played Killer Instinct had such cool theme song. I played this mostly on consoles though. And there are many of those games on here that do have console ports. Pretty much none of them are as good as the arcade. Some of them come close, and we're going to talk about a couple of them. But yeah, I have this one and the original Killer Instinct on console, but I feel like the arcade just played better. Like, it just seemed like it was a better console or a better version of it. And I know there are people out there who know this way more than I do that are like, oh, well, you know, the frame rate and stuff's better on the arcade. I don't know that much about it, so I just know what I know. But this was such a fun game. The artwork, the theme song, even the intro. This was before the N64 was officially announced. They had a preview before, well, I guess during the intro that said, coming to the Ultra 64 in 1995 or whatever. And seeing that and being like, what is the Ultra 64 before any of the N64 stuff came out? It was, yeah, this one definitely makes a good spot on my list at number 20, 19, 18, 17. Yeah, it's a great one. I think it's a great console. It's a great cabinet. It's a great cabinet that I think this was one of the few that I think when 1UP announced they were going to do another one that was going to come out for their remake consoles, I was like, ooh, okay, you're tempting me. You're really tempting me with Killer Instinct. But yeah, and also when it comes to gameplay, I loved the original Killer Instinct, but this one just upgraded everything. And again, when you were watching another kid, when you were waiting for your time, and someone pulled an ultra combo, and you're either waiting or you're at the machine next to them, and you hear the announcer yell, "Ultra combo!" You knew something cool was happening. So yeah, this was the cabinet that really pulled you in when it came to the imagery, the song, the announcer. It just knocked out of the park. So I could not put this on the list. Now, again, I want to stress, I'm not just going to do shooting games. I'm not just going to do fighting games. However, there are a lot. The next one obviously has got to be House of the Dead. House of the frickin' Dead 2. Now, again, this is one that I think a lot of people think of when they think of going to the arcade. In fact, we might as well pull this up now. I posted a story today asking you guys what you thought your favorite arcade game was. And we had a lot of people message, and I'm going to quickly go through them and see what you guys put. And I remember this because one of the first ones that came in was Mr. David Thorne, said that his favorites were House of the Dead 1 to 4. Obviously, all 4 were in the arcades at some point. Freakish Workshop said there was a Star Wars Rebel Squadron style game I loved. I remember that one. It is not on the list, but I do remember how great that game was. The Insta Sword, Time Crisis 3. I will tell you right now, Time Crisis did not make the list, but it was right there on the brink. And Joe's Clues with a classic that would be on this list, but again, not of my generation. The classic Space Invaders. Why would that not be on the list? When it comes to House of the Dead, this is probably the one that I've seen the most different versions of. I have seen stand-up consoles like this. I have seen sit-down cabinets. I have seen ones where you go in and you sit under a dome There are so many versions of this game, and similar to Lethal Enforcers, I don't know if it's just because they made so many different ones over so many years, or if people just kind of Frankenstein the pieces together to make it work so they could get a lot more coins. The game itself is so bad in a great way. Like, when I say that there was a cheesiness to Resident Evil 4, there's a cheesiness to House of the Dead 2. The dialogue is absolutely abysmal in the best way. But it's fun. It is a very fun game. However, it is low on this list because it is one of the most impossible games to beat. I remember pumping so many quarters into this game, and it is one that is so cheap when it comes to enemies. You can get through probably the first level with a quarter, but once you get into the next stage, you are pretty low on health and you are getting your butt kicked. So it's got to be low on the list. I like it. It's a classic, but the cheapness of the cabinet, or the cheapness of the game, does bring it down on the list. When it comes to the cabinet, the logo stands out. I think the cabinet's kind of boring, though. I don't think it does enough, and the art style that's on this cabinet is very similar to what the other ones look like. They've just made it bigger or smaller or modified it. I feel like they could have done more with it, and I just feel like it's a little cheap, but maybe that's my just opinion. In chat, Alex said Gauntlet was one of my favorites. Again, a classic game, just unfortunately not my generation. And Justin Smith, Wrestlefest was always one of my favorites. Stay tuned. We'll just keep it with that. So we got House of the Dead next. Let's go into one that I think anybody that's a movie fan, and when I say movie tie-in arcade game, what game comes to mind? What game comes to mind when I say movie licensed game for an arcade? If you don't think of T2, you aren't in the arcades in the 90s. Because, man, did this game stand out. And that side panel is a very good version and a very Wow, Justin, throwing the left hook. I totally forgot about Die Hard. Wow, that is a deep cut arcade game. You know what? I will give you a round of applause for that one. That is one that not many people think of. I have not thought of that one in a while. Good call. However, I have to go the other route. The one that most people think of, the T2 arcade cabinet. Man, this game, this is probably the cheapest game when it comes to beating the living daylights out of you as a player. I don't think I ever got past level 1. I don't think it was until probably my teens, if not 20s, when the internet really became a thing and I was able to go online and go, there's other levels besides just being in the future shooting T-800s. Yeah, there's a point where you have to save John Connor. There's a part where you're in a truck. There's a part where you're just shooting the T-1000 at the end. Didn't know any of those missions existed because I never got past level 1. Lark Park, this is one of the hardest arcades to beat and play. 100%. And I have this as a ROM, and it is... you thought it was bad with a gun? Try playing it with a controller as a ROM. It's a nightmare. You can't get anywhere in that game. But it's still fun. It's still fun just shooting the daylights out of T-800s. Like, that cabinet with Arnold on the side, it just brings you in. And as a kid of the 90s, you saw photos, you saw clips, you saw all these things of what that movie was, and Arnold being a robot underneath, and but we're not of the age that we knew what the movie was or had seen the movie. So just being able to play it and knowing that, you're shooting the crap out of these robots, so fun. So fun. But again, absolutely impossible to get through the first level without getting absolutely obliterated. Even if you're competent enough to use dual guns, it was still a pain in the arse. Now, we would not be able to talk about arcade games. And again, this is probably one that people wished was higher. But I do not have a love for the franchise as others do, because I was not able to watch this growing up. And that game is the Simpsons Arcade game. Now, yes, you heard me correctly. I did not watch The Simpsons growing up. I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons growing up. I was told it was a dumb show, and I was told I was not allowed to watch it. And then when I would go to my dad's, we would watch South Park. And then when I came home, I started quoting South Park quotes to my mom. And then my mom started loving South Park, and by that point, when you're watching South Park, The Simpsons is like baby stuff, so I just never watched it. But I did enjoy the game. I really did enjoy this cabinet. I knew, obviously, the popularity of The Simpsons, even though I wasn't watching the TV show. Something about this that I don't think a lot of people realize, especially now that it's been so long. This game came out just after, I think, the first or second season. Like, it wasn't like 5-6 seasons deep when this came out. They only had like the first or second season to work off. So when people see the little characters in it and are kind of wondering why some mainstay characters aren't in it, it's because they didn't have that much to work with. And again, if this game came out, let's say after the second season, that means it was in development for probably a year, if not more, beforehand, which means they only had about one season to use information from, because they were probably writing and shooting and animating the show while they were making the game. So there wasn't a lot for them to work on. So I give them a lot of credit for taking an IP that at that point was popular, but wasn't the global juggernaut that Simpsons is now, or was, depending on how much you love the show. I give them credit for such a good game for an IP that, again, wasn't as big as people remember. I love this game. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, even if you weren't a fan of the show. The only problem is again, 2025, very different than 1995. A lot of boys in the arcades, not a ton of girls. There were girls, but not a ton. All the boys wanting to fight for Bart and being the kid who gets stuck with Lisa is kind of frustrating, because you always want to get 4 because you knew it'd be more fun with 4 people. But I was always the kid, if there was a bunch of us, that got stuck with Lisa. And it was just like, I don't want to be Lisa. I want to be at least Homer. So, yeah, that was kind of the depressing part of it. But still a fun game. Lark Bark Justin said this is the same cabinet as Arrow. Yes, going back to the T2, that is the same cabinet as Aerosmith Revolution X. Another game that I have the ROM for, and that one is a lot more fun than T2. A lot less cheap. It's still a great game. Funny note, I believe, the female in Revolution X, the mistress, I believe she is, I believe, Carrie Hoskins, the same woman who plays Sonya Blade in Ultimate Mortal Kombat. Bet you didn't know that. But yeah, still a great game. If you're a Simpsons fan, you love this game. And if you're not a Simpsons fan and you were in the arcade, you probably still played this game. As I was not a fan of The Simpsons, I did grow up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this was probably, besides one other one, the multiplayer game that everybody wanted to play. This is a childhood love for many kids of my generation. And I know that because they have been trying to replicate the love for this game multiple times throughout the years. And they've only recently been able to come very close to it, and that is with the TMNT Shredder's Revenge, which plays very similar and is pretty damn close. But they've tried since then. They've done it a couple times in the 2000s, and it was dog crap. They've re-released it digitally, but they've tried to do new versions of it, and it's been just terrible. But this is a classic. This is an absolute classic. This is one, unlike Simpsons, where you could pretty much pick any character you wanted. Like, everybody would love to be Mikey or something, but if you got stuck with Leo or you got stuck with Raph, no one was really upset. You still got a really cool turtle of it. This is one, unlike The Simpsons again, that had so many Easter eggs. Because they had so much reference material to work with, unlike The Simpsons. They had the cartoon out by this point, so you had many different characters. Bebop and Rocksteady, Shredder, obviously, Baxter Stockman, the Rat King, all of the characters from the TV show, which just made it so much more fun because you got to play and beat up the characters that you saw in the cartoons, which just made it so much better. I also really enjoy the different versions of the characters when you went in time, like the pirate Bebop and Rocksteady. I think today's generation would probably not enjoy it as much. I feel like this generation really wants everything to be exactly like they remember it, but for some reason the way they did it in this game was fun and was a different version of it, but it was accepted and we enjoyed it a lot more. This game is probably, I would say, out of the ports that I've played when it comes to arcade games going to console, this is probably the closest to the original cabinet when it comes to playing it on a cartridge. I do have it on cartridge. I love it. I have it digitally. I love it. I have Shredder's Revenge, which again is close to this, and I love it as well. It is still fun to play. Like, it's still a blast, and it is one that I don't mind playing through the whole game. Like, I don't remember getting bored playing this. Even when you get 7-8 levels deep, you're like, okay, this is still fun to start throwing foot soldiers at the camera and stuff like that, which is something that I think is such a weird, fun thing that no one really thinks about. Like, you literally have a move that you throw a enemy into the camera and crack the camera. Like, that's such a fun, and that it's used later on in the game as a way to beat a boss. Like, that's something that you had as a developer, you're probably looking at going, okay, let's try it. Like, Big Apple 3 a.m. Yeah. There is actually, side note, I don't have this in my notes, but it just hit me. There is actually a company I saw a week ago. It was on Instagram. I wish I was able to keep it. I should have saved it. Someone has made a vinyl of the music from this game, and it's on like a neon or a teal vinyl record, and I would love to get it and just play it. There's a lot of these games that when I'm working, I like having background music, and I don't like music with lyrics because then I'll focus on the lyrics and I won't be focusing on my work. But there are games like this that I will just type in Turtles in Time OST original soundtrack, and I'll press play and just let it run, and I'll just work with it in the background. And Big Apple 3 a.m. is just, it's such a good song. And that's another thing, is that's kind of goes back to the Killer Instincts, hearing really cool music and sounds coming out of a cabinet made you want to play it because it looked like you were people playing it were having a lot of fun. So, we got 2 more, and someone mentioned this one earlier as one of their favorites, and as a hardcore wrestling fan, I would be very remiss to not have this on the list. Wrestlefest is the wrestling game in the arcade. There have been others. There's been Royal Rumble. There's been others. This is the game. And this is a game I want to point out that I loved even though I was playing this during the Attitude Era of WWE. This is not the WWE that I was watching at the time. That's how fun this game was. Because most people nowadays, if I said, hey, do you want to play... If I told a kid today, do you want to play SmackDown versus Raw 2012 or something like that? No kid would probably want to play that. They'd be like, oh no, because it doesn't have Cody Rhodes in it and Roman Reigns. And that's fine. That's their generation. But man, me sitting down with this going, Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, like I kind of heard about them. I kind of know who they are. What's this? Like, it's such a fun game. And this is one that WWE has even tried to replicate, and it doesn't work. They tried replicating it in around 2015, I believe, and it just flopped. It flopped. I remember everyone was so excited because it was going to be similar style and everything, and it just died. And unfortunately, because of the licenses and all that, they aren't ever going to probably be able to replicate it and bring it back. But the memories of this game. And again, also hearing the crowd, hearing the sounds coming from this, seeing the visual. And I wish I had I couldn't find a photo of the cabinet that had this photo in it that looked good. But having Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, cutting a digital promo and pointing at you, trying to get you to play the game. Like, it was such a fun look. And as a wrestling fan, it just brought me in. Having all the characters around the outside, having, Sergeant Slaughter, Earthquake, Mr. Perfect, Smash, Hogan, Hawk, Animal, Warrior, Axe, Jake, Bossman, DiBiase. Like, it was everybody from that generation that you'd want in a wrestling game, and it was just incredible, and it was so fun. And again, it looking at it now from a developer standpoint makes me laugh that when you think of a wrestling game, you think of one-on-one matches and etc. This is a game that had no one-on-one. You either had a tag or you're in the Royal Rumble. That's it. You either had a tag or you're at a 10-man over-the-top rope battle royal. That's a weird thing for the developer just to be like, you only get 2 options. You don't get a one-on-one match. But it was so fun. It was so fun, and it deserves the 12th spot on my list. And last but not least, this is another one that I think deserves a lot. This is one that I have to admit, I've mentioned to people. I've mentioned this to arcade people and people of my generation, and they go, I have no idea what you're talking about. And my jaw kind of drops, like, you don't remember this game? Because with me, it was at every arcade, and I love this game to the point that I own it on PlayStation 1. Area 51. This is, again, am I in the minority here that this is not a game that everyone remembers? This, again, is a light gun shooter that has digitized actors in it. Lark Bark, I remember this game like it was yesterday. Good times. Okay, thank you, because like I'm sitting here talking to people and I'm like, this is, you guys don't remember this? There are cabinets that are just Area 51. There are cabinets that are doubled where you could play Area 51 or you could play Maximum Force, which was a similar style game, but I really enjoyed the Area 51. This game is higher on the list than some classic games that, Lethal Enforcers and such we talked about earlier, because this game didn't feel cheap. I was able to get pretty darn far in this game and not feel like the computer was just beating me out of my quarters. Because that really means a lot to a kid, because there's struggle in games. 100% you're allowed to do, especially in arcades. We understand that, they're trying to get more money out of you. I get that. But there comes a line where you're like, okay, this is feeling a little too ridiculous. Like, I'm a pretty good gamer, even at the age of a kid. I know I'm a pretty good gamer, but man, there are some that just beat the daylights out of you. This one felt fair. Like, I felt like, okay, I've got a shot of doing pretty good in this. Justin Smith says, this was everywhere. I had it on PS1 too, and the game was at a lot of laser tag places. Yep, I believe it. I really enjoyed this one. Again, I'm glad I was able to finally pick it up on PS1. And it's also, this is how I know later on that it wasn't as easy as I thought. I was able to enjoy this game on PS1 with a controller, which is a lot different than playing with a light gun. I still can enjoy it just with a controller. So, yeah, this was a very, very, very fun game. So, let's quickly run through it before we head out of here, folks. We are starting things off with Lucky and Wild, with the innovation of driving and shooting at the same time, plus making a co-op game. Lethal Enforcers, because of the classic nature of the shooting. Street Fighter 2 has to be on this list in some capacity, even though I'm not a big fan of the series. Killer Instinct 2, because of everything that cabinet does. The artwork, the sound, the announcer. House of the Dead, probably one of the most well-known shooters out there, and a great game. T2, just knowing that you're going to be blowing away T800s, and that artwork with Arnold on the side just pulls you in. The Simpsons, because this is probably the one that most people think of when it comes to a co-op beat-em-up, which I completely understand. I just wasn't as big of a fan. TMNT, like, if you're a Turtle fan, this is the Turtle game. There's not many others that do it better than this. If you're a WWE fan back in the day, this was the Wrestlefest. This was the wrestling game that you played when you went to the arcade. Every classic person. And last but not least, a personal love because of the gameplay as well as the ease of play. Area 51 makes number 11. And that, folks, is 20-11. Justin says, I always loved Time Crisis because of the gun blowback and the pedal you had to step on. A great innovation when it comes to gameplay. I prefer the later Time Crisis games. I actually like the assault rifle ones. But yes, the pedal being able to duck down behind cover is a great innovation. And it is close to my top 20. It would probably be 21 or 22, but I just haven't played it enough back in the day that that is not on my list. Folks, that is it for the top 20 to 11. Next week, we will be back with the top 10, and there are some on here that you're going to be looking at me and going, that's that high on the list, but they hold a special place in my heart due to many, many different factors. Again, thank you all for joining me on this Monday night. I appreciate you spending the time here. If you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, it would mean so much to me. Again, as we said early in the show, we usually do a pre-show here on Instagram. We are going to be switching that to TikTok next week, probably for a couple weeks, just to see, switch things up, see how it does, and maybe we'll get some more people here on the stream. We have a couple cons coming up in the next little while. We've got Toronto Comic Con, and then we've got Toronto Game Expo, where we are going to be bringing out the Cajun, and we're going to be bringing up my first gender bend cosplay, which will be Chell from Portal. We got a lot of cosplay stuff this week. I'm going to be trying to do an Instagram live. I don't know if I'm going to be able to just because I got some other stuff. If you're in the Toronto area this weekend, it is Elimination Chamber. The WWE will be in town for the premium live event, pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it. I'm probably going to be swinging down to Toronto on the weekend, maybe Friday night, maybe Saturday, because I want to check out the Superstore, maybe pick myself up a hat. But that is about it for tonight. I'm going to let you guys get out of here. It means a lot to me that you are spending some of your time with me on the Monday night. Have yourselves a great night, folks. I love you all, and I will see you all next week here on Monday Night Nerd. Take care, folks. See you soon. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.